Hi.
How's it?
Hello, Nicole.
Hello.
Can you hear me? Shingi, can you hear me nicely?
Nicole, I can hear
May I
you
get
loud
some-
and clear.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, it's clear
Thank
as
you.
mud.
Okay, awesome. How's everyone doing?
We are fine.
Those that
How are
are
you?
on?
Great.
Yeah, okay.
Surviving. Still at work, at home, ready for the night.
Yes.
Ready for the studies, yes.
Okay. Got your coffee?
Yes.
Is there any questions before we start from those that are logged on?
So this is Samantha here. I've sent through some questions
Hi,
on
Samantha.
email. I don't know if you received it. It was
Hang on a
from
second.
about 45 minutes ago.
What did you not receive? Sorry?
No, I said I sent through some questions requesting if we could
Oh.
address them in the Zoom. I sent it to you.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
I'm just checking that you
Let's see.
received them.
Yes, I have now. I'm reading them. Thank you, Samantha.
Okay,
Certainly
thank you.
address them.
Thanks.
Hi, Nicole.
Hello, how are you?
Good in you. I also sent a question.
Very good.
When was it? Saturday, Sunday? I'm sort of losing track of days. It was the third question of the second self-assessment.
I'm on my email. I'm sorry, I see Samantha's. I'm not seeing yours for some reason.
All right. It was just, I'm looking now for my email
Samantha?
myself. Maybe it didn't go through.
Okay, let me just check what's your email address again? Sorry.
MJON0011.
In for Nelly. Joni? Oh, there.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi, sorry, Nicole, I'm losing connection. I don't know what's going on with our internet. It was regarding the EAC calculation.
Wait. Okay, sorry, I'm just looking. Okay, I see it now. I'm sorry, I missed that one. Sorry.
No, it's
But
fine.
I
I sort of went
normally
through
do.
it.
Okay,
What I could see, yeah.
Okay, so that one I will deal with individually, if that's okay.
Okay.
It's a little bit
Yes, thank
specific,
you.
where I will respond to your email. And then, because I think Samantha's a little bit more regards to this week. So if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I apologize for that. Really bizarre. Can you guys see me? Because I seem to.
No.
Hello?
Yes, we can see you.
Yes, we can see you.
Okay, just give me a second. Okay, you guys
Yes,
are back.
you can.
Okay, so it is 6:02. We've got 26 on the line. I hope you guys are well. I think I don't know if you guys saw the email that I sent out today. I thought to elaborate on that email because I did a little bit of an analysis in terms of the work that was performed in Connect. Now, I do get specific statistics on it that I can determine who, not who, but the completion of self-assessments. And I can tell you honestly, what prompted me actually doing the analysis was this last week's assignment. So I think the assignment, the calculations, of course, it is straightforward. There is nothing particularly difficult with the calculations, as we spoke about in detail in the last Zoom and in the lecture. But so essentially, most of you got the calculations right, and most of you got the fact that you choose an NPV greater than 0 right. Having said that, I am lacking a little bit of depth in the second part to the questions. And I was trying to explain to you in the lecture that this course is 50% calculations, and this next week assignment is also only going to be 50% calculations based. So if you are performing the calculations and you are getting to a conclusion based on your, quite a quick conclusion based on your calculations, then you will earn 50%. However, the remaining 50% is definitely an application that is required. Now, where do you get that from? You would have got that application knowledge through watching videos, through completing self-assessments, through reading your Connect and reading the background to the theory and understanding your inputs clearly rather than just ticking the calculations as boxes. Now, right in the beginning of the course, some of you might question to say, why are we talking about this discount rate, etc., etc.? Is this relevant for a CEO? And definitely, if I give you such an easy calculation as I did in this last assignment, you're thinking this is just for grade ones, but it's not. And I'll try and explain a little bit why, and hopefully you can understand where I'm coming from. The last comment that I want to say is that I don't expect anyone's answer this week and last week to be the same. The reason is because of the applicant, and each person will apply themselves differently, and that's okay, because I make with my own judgment based on the accuracy of and the relevance of the comments. So definitely you don't have to feel scared to go off course. That's what I'm urging you to do, and that's what the videos and the actual compasses and the additional reading in this course is there. Of course, I can't force you to do those things, but definitely I can see a correlation developing between the marks and the application and the level of work in Connect in terms of, I think only 50% of students have completed self-assessments. So I think that is quite relevant. So what am I picking up from this last assignment? So what you had to do, and I'm just going to share the screen with you. Can you see the easy cash flow of the assignment?
Yes,
Shingi, what do you see on screen?
Yes,
Yeah,
we
you
can.
can see your screen.
Okay, so you were given simple round cash flows. Minus 50, you all know that's the investment, and then you had positive cash flows. So most of you knew how to do the simple NPV calculation using the discount rate of 10 and then adding back your initial investment, and then you get a present value. Or some of you extended the calculation to look at the present value of those elements, which I thought is already one step further, and then compared it to the NPV. Now, again, 50%, you got these answers. You concluded that the NPV is greater than 0, and also the IRR is more than the 10% discount rate, and then you would have gotten your 50%. However, where's the other 50%? Now, obviously, in the format, in the layout of, and please, guys, butt in, ask questions. The format in the language, the question was quite clear that the CEO, or you're addressing the assignment to a CEO. So already there's a particular financial literacy and tone that you use when you are talking to a CEO of an organization. And then I'd also say when the question is specific in terms of you are talking to a CEO, then you need to assume that there is some sort of back financial literacy of the person. So that also determines your audience and who you talk to. So the CEO already said that he or she, I can't remember gender, but they didn't feel that the project would be a good one. So essentially what this assignment required you to do is to go back and say, okay, yes, I agree with you based on these and these reasons, or I disagree based on these and these reasons. So that's one clear thing, that it was almost, if you agreed that this was a project to accept, then it was sort of a pitch in terms of how you're going to change this person's mind. So there's definitely an element of convincing and justification in your report. Okay, so let's look at the calculations in a bit more detail, and you guys can add any other, because I've only marked about 50%, so I'm sure you guys will still have some things to add. But then I would like to ask to start analyzing the data in a bit more detail. So what have you learned so far? You've learned that an NPV is there to create shareholder wealth. So that's the one thing that the CEO might have said. This one, does it create shareholder wealth? Yes or no? And why? Also, what you've learned in this NPV is that you are using future forecasts. And that's something that we learned in the lecture when making forecasts, or when we're making an NPV, because this is all future information. And how reliable is that information? So the way that we normally do that is, but now again, I'm not saying this is the only answer. I'm just saying a couple of things that I picked up from the assignment that I would have written in terms of my assignment. Again, this is not the only answers, but it just shows that I have applied information. So the next thing I would have looked at is the actual cash flows. And I would have done a growth analysis of it. So in the first year, we're growing nicely, then the growth slows down, and then the growth starts speeding up again. So perhaps the thing to say, have said to the CEO, gosh, this cash flows look like it's speeding up. Is there a way that we can maybe have another year of 60% growth? How would that have impacted my NPV if we were wrong with these growth forecasts? Perhaps that is what the CEO said. Maybe these growth forecasts are just wrong. So again, the information was given to you, but as a financial person, as a custodian of funds, you need to start asking the what ifs. You need to take the financial theory further, because every single textbook is the same, but not every CEO out there is the same. Why is that? Because they are analyzing, they are questioning, and they are asking, well, I'm given this, what am I not given? So some of you did quite nicely looked at the NPV relative, or the initial investment relative to what you are getting in, and you made a conclusion. Because maybe this is a small company and maybe $50,000 or rands is a big amount. However, this NPV is giving you 92, which is almost twice your initial investment back in present value terms. So that seems to be quite a worthwhile investment. How would you back that up? Would you back that up using other methods like your discounted payback or your PI index? You could have answered it that way. Or you could have then said, okay, this is an NPV. Let's talk about the risks, because that is the second step to an NPV. Let's look at the payback. What does the payback really tell us? That means in 3 years, we are getting our money back. Yes, the information didn't give you information whether this is an acceptable payback period or not. Yes, you needed to draw some conclusions, or at least just ask the question. What does that 3 years mean? Is it a long time horizon? I suppose maybe looking at the discount rate, and that's the second part, also an input question that you can ask. What are the inputs that are going into my net present value? I've assumed a 10% discount rate for cash flows that are looking around. Are these cash flows accurate? Now, the CEO said that they are not accepting this project based on 10%. Maybe that was too low a discount rate for the company. Maybe you could have adjusted that and performed a sensitivity that we spoke about and said, what happens if I flex this to 15%? Where's my NPV? And what is the sensitivity then thereafter? Let's see what else I thought about. Yes, and then just the last comment on all the risks that I spoke about. Now, there's numerous risks that we could have discussed. In terms of what the CEO is saying, in terms of he's not willing to accept this project for whatever reason. Obviously, these risks. Obviously, this NPV might be lower than other projects. Perhaps the payback method would have been attractive to try and convince the CEO, listen, this is a fairly risk-free investment because you're getting your money back in year 3. In addition, you're getting almost double than your original investment. IRR. One key thing that I can see from the information is a clear understanding of IRR and the discount rate used in this net present value. What is the difference between this 10% and IRR? Now, this 10%, remember what we learned last week. We said is the net present value discounted at the weighted average cost of the company's capital. Okay? So that is a measure of whether the company's costs have been exceeded. Is that necessarily what the shareholder is seeing and wanting? Now, we don't know from a company's perspective. You could have said an IRR of 32 exceeds the company's cost of capital, their weighted average cost of capital. Absolutely. However, what do shareholders really want? That is very different to this 10%. This top valuation is performed from a CEO and company's perspective, whether the company is exceeding its costs. A shareholder might want very different returns. So a shareholder might want a 30% IRR or even a 40% IRR, depending on the risks of this project. So I would just like to highlight from whose perspective you are analyzing the project, from a shareholder's perspective or from the CEO's perspective. And the CEO does have shareholder perspective in mind. So even though the company might be covering their weighted average cost of capital, but perhaps there's a reason why they're not accepting the IRR, even though it is high. Another point on the IRR, but that was just one comment, if it is a different perspective. Another comment is to have put this example in context, in a South African context, whether the CEO might be considering the rates that you can generate in South Africa. And, some people took it further in terms, they were saying, the current bond only gives you 10%. Here you can get an IRR of 32. Surely this is attractive. Okay, so those are just some very few qualitative characteristics that you could have considered. So now you can start seeing what you need to get out of this course. If you had made reference to videos, so that person in this video said, you are demonstrating that you've got a detailed, in-depth application type knowledge and not just the calculations. So what does that mean for this assignment coming up? Because I've already got some people saying, how do we do the sensitivity and, focusing on the calculations. And of course, part 1 is going to be the calculations, definitely. But then part 2 is going to be the sensitivity. Now, I've given you some information, but the thing is I can't give you all of the information. So you guys need to think about how you would put forward a sensitivity, what the break-even means for this project, and what are the other qualitative considerations that you need to consider when you are dealing with smartphones in this case. So now you're dealing with the technological space, and what is the qualitative characteristics there? Now, I can't give you any more information, but I'm saying to you again, the calculation is 50%, and then 50% will come from your application of the scenario, referencing to other material, other literature, including videos, including lecture, including some comments that we discussed in class. That will give your argument depth and the application that definitely a CEO would require. Okay, is there any other questions on this week's assignment, or where to go from here?
I have a question, Nicole, if you don't mind. It's Samantha again.
Yes.
Considering everything
Yeah.
that you've told us now, I'm deeply interested in knowing my mark before I go ahead with the second assignment, just to kind of gauge if how well I did in that. When will we get those marks?
I am promising 99% tomorrow afternoon.
Fabulous. Thank you very much.
You know, unless my house overflows or something like that. But most likely tomorrow afternoon. Okay.
That would be great.
I understand that you need to see. Yes. It's just, I think this course was underestimated a little bit in terms of, you know, why I'm taking, you know, everyone through the calculations. And I think now it's putting a little bit of a different perspective in terms of we're not only doing an NPV, but we need to understand each and every input into the calculation. And that's different from undergraduate, and that's also different from how any other financial course would have learned. And also, I can promise you now, that's different from how most CEOs see it. And it is just something that we're seeing in the market. I mean, again, Sign-Off's information here today is that they had the information before. So if they had the information, why were these questions not asked? So obviously their scenario relates more to the leverage calculations, but again, the calculations form the backbone of all of these things. And it's very, very relevant. And it's relevant to understand it fully and in a great amount of detail. Any other
Nicole,
questions? Yes.
yes, it's Sunay here. I just want to ask a question on your 50,000 initial investment.
Yes.
Yeah. How I've read it is that it was because it was not a capital investment, it was more like a working capital investment. It would
Okay.
have flown back in at the end of the 5th year, because they said there that the company is going to support the investment initially.
Okay.
So I'm just
So-
wondering why you would, yes?
That is a completely valid consideration. A completely valid consideration. And I promise you, obviously I haven't gotten, because I would have thought about it and I would have plugged it in here, because that's a clever consideration. And you get marked based on your relevance and your own logic. And that's something that I will definitely appreciate. You know, because that's a very good point to say, what kind of investment is this 50,000? Is it more a sunk cost, i.e., you know, the company is just deploying resources from the other cost centers to this, or which would make, I mean, come on, then that makes this this investment a no-brainer. If you're just deploying a few IT guys or, you know, some working capital to it, versus buying a separate machine. And you could have brought in the option value argument into that to say, well, you know, then we've got the option to just cease this thing and then redeploy our resources back into the business if it makes no difference and no effort for the business. Very good point.
Okay.
Do you see how
Yeah, so that is why you said there's no really right and wrong, and when you mark with an open mind. Is that
absolutely. And I don't expect any.
I just get concerned you know, it feels like, yes, yeah, am I losing it now totally? Because I don't do the things like the examples, and then I feel like, you see, okay.
So it's very uncharted territory. I understand, and you're feeling out of control because you don't have the right or wrong answer, but that is how agents of businesses operate in this environment. And that's something that we all need to get used to in pushing the boundaries, thinking of new ideas, and applying ourselves using the financial literature. So there's a backbone, and then you need to go and take that further and make it applicable to your business and your scenario.
Okay, thank you, Nicole.
Okay, but I mean, I think that's why definitely if you read the videos, if you read, I mean, what I'm not saying is that you need to now go and because that's also not what's expected in terms of you now needing to be a Warren Buffett and throw out this thing out there. Don't feel that pressure. If you take it from our videos, if you take it from the Compass, if you take it from the financial literature, you can get 100% there. So the information is embedded in the course. That's a fact. You know what I mean? So it's not like you've got to now go into the World Wide Web and, find a needle in a haystack. That's not the point. The point I'm making is just I saw the analysis of the work that went into the Connect, which I can see. So I can't see who's done videos, who's done Compass reading, who's done all the additional articles. But what I can see is the depth of the assignments. And that's, I think that's also addressing your concern of, as an MBA student in terms of why am I here? Just to do this calculation? No. And that's to apply yourself and become financially relevant. And that's where we want to get to. So I wish you good luck. And also just one big thing about this assignment is that I'm here. I'm receiving very few emails asking questions about, I've thought of this. Is this utter rubbish? Or is it relevant? Please. Obviously not on a Sunday at 2. I might miss it. But if you email me before Sunday, I will respond, and you can use me as a sounding board in terms of your application. So get started on the assignment. Well, firstly, just understand the NPVs and the break even. So really do your work around the NPV self-assessment today. But again, get started on assignment, finish your calculations, and then start looking at it, because those calculations, so for example, in my Excel sheet, I gave one line as an NPV calculation. So of course, if you get the right answer, then you'll get the marks. But again, if you don't show me your inputs, if you don't show me your understanding behind it, then I can't mark through. So you guys need to use your own judgment in terms of what you want to show, how you want to show it, because nobody out there is going to say, your CEOs is not going to say, well, please, can you prepare it in this document? Please, can you think about these qualitative characteristics? That's going to be your job. And also as a CEO of the company, it stops there. So you need to think about everything, not the person even doing doing the calculations for you. The buck stops with you. So think clearly in terms of the calculations. Go through your calculation line by line. Ask yourself, because also you'll see, as we know about in the NPV and the future value calculations, sometimes your signage is wrong. That can't be my Excel spreadsheet's fault, because there's going to be different ways to flow it through into the trial, into your NPV calculation. So you've got to make sure that your calculations are correct. I've given you some guidance, but you need to make sure it's correct. You need to make sure that it flows into your NPV correctly. Then your second line in your sensitivity analysis, that's where you need to really start applying your mind to the scenario. What is Contra Republic? What do they do? What is the smartphone thing? What is the interest rates? What are the inputs? What are the forecasts? What are the things that we need to think about in this scenario? Whether to really accept or reject this decision. Okay, so it's a